La 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 la.
Welcome everyone to our newly named Fireside Chat, because we went this way because it's more of a casual, deep conversation with friends, and we'll have a number of different people, our friends, that'll come on board and have a chat, have a discussion. Sorry if there's no crackling fire in the background, but I have a candle. How you going, Linda?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
The points today we're discussing is, are thoughts real? Should we trust them? Do they empower or imprison you? What can we do about them? Who is responsible for your thoughts, your thinking? We'll be offering considerations and contemplations toward more freedom in today's talk. So, Linda, are your thoughts real?
Nope.
Okay.
Are yours?
No. I used to think they were, and obviously I used to own it, as many of us have. But the bottom line is, it's absolutely profound, the fact that no thought is real. And I'm not talking about like formulas or processes and doing things. I'm talking about the mind chatter within yourself. Nothing can be proven. And even if the mind tells you something that's going to happen and it seemingly happened, there's so much more going on behind the scenes. And in my experience, a holistic view means that instead of prejudging every thought and trying to justify it, pretty deep conversation already, but instead of trying to every thought, which embeds you in further suffering, if you're suffering, or whatever you're feeling, you're going to make it stronger or intensify it. That's the same thing. You're going to intensify your thoughts, at least protect your thoughts. And if they cause suffering, then you're protecting that suffering. You're harboring pain, which is crazy, really. I just feel what I've had a guru in the past. I just thought, if I'm still suffering, then I haven't seen deeply enough. And it shows that I'm still being caught. So we must question if we're suffering. In my experience, and this is what I spent a lot of years seeking this understanding, is that I've got to find a new way to think. I have to learn to question everything, and there's a potential trap here. Thoughts connect with feeling, and then you create a certain feeling, certain chemical reactions. It's easy to say, it's a chemical reaction. You're saying that the chemicals aren't true or they're not real. Well, yes and no. There are chemical reactions, and we can enhance them or we can change them based on how we think. If I said to you, Linda, I've got $1 million in the bank, I just won it, and here's $500,000 for yourself. Take your family, take your whole family on a holiday. You'd be like, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
You'd have a chemical response straight away. You can't say that's not real. But so therefore, the same token, I can say, oh, by the way, so-and-so's coming to your house there's bliss. I'll stash some stuff there that shouldn't be. And you got $500 there. It's like, well, then, oh no, like, let's get out of here. So we can influence each other, or any of us can influence anyone for a chemical reaction within the body. And the whole point is to not be triggered. The whole point is to gain control of our thoughts and get on how we feel. So I feel we need to have a choice, learn to have a choice in how we're feeling, how we're thinking. People have said, I wanted to bring this in, but it might be the wrong timing. No, I won't bring that in just yet. I'll save it. So
I can save it for later.
Yeah. So should we trust thoughts? I just feel, what do you feel on should we trust thoughts?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of thought it is, and if it's a good thought or a bad thought. Is it something that's going to fester and make you feel not good, or is it something that's going to make you feel good? If it's something that's going to feel you good, then by all means, nurture it, empower it. I think if it's something that's going on a downhill slide and you can feel that that's the direction it's taking, then you can choose not to participate in that and let it go.
This is the whole thing. Can you actually choose?
I think so. Definitely
Yeah.
think so. I think one technique that I use sometimes, I haven't been using it that much lately, but I used to, when I felt myself going into a negative space with our thoughts, I would envision that thought being in almost like a cloud. And then I would vision that exploding into a million pieces. I kind of shoot it down like pew, 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 and I just see it exploding. And to me, that was kind of removing that thought from my reality. And I felt that helped because the second it was gone in my mind, I wasn't thinking about it anymore, and it helped.
Okay. How do you shoot it down?
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just visualizing energy. Just, I guess, well, it worked. I just figured it worked, and the second it was gone, if I really, really concentrated, it would come back. But if I didn't, it kind of felt like it was gone. It was actually gone, and my thoughts went in a completely new direction.
I've spoken to a few people, and they say, you need bus 70. That's the idea of where you want to go.
Mm,
And so then they go, well, you're going to go on bus 75? No. Bus 80 comes along. You're going to get on that? No.
mm.
It sounds really clear cut. Sounds easy. And this wasn't really my experience at all, like most of my life. I would just choose which thought you want to follow. But there's something here that a lot of people don't really talk about that I've heard in my experience. Have I told you this story before?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the element? what's, what's the element that's missing? Like if it's that easy, and for some it may be, but can you think of what's missing in this? Because that sounds really cut and dry. It sounds easy, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well,
And I think it's easy if it's certain processes or for work or certain things you need to do, you can choose which direction you go. You can make a choice to a degree, but we're talking about emotions here.
yeah. Well, that's it. If it's a thought on its own, it's quite easy because there's nothing else attached to it. But as soon as you attach emotions to it, then it becomes way more intimate and personal.
So that process you used, did that work if there was an emotional attachment? How well did it work if there's an emotional attachment?
I think if it was strong emotional attachment, it's not something that even entered into my mind. I think, well, sometimes when you feel fear, I found I did it with things that I did not want to manifest. And I think as a parent, it's one of those things that initially when I was trying to learn to let go of a lot of fears around your children, like you don't want your children to experience trauma, you don't want your children to suffer. Sometimes by doing that, you start thinking of the worst case scenario, and I didn't want that manifesting. So even though there was fear attached to it, I could stop myself and go, no, this is not going to become a reality in my life. So therefore, I sort of shut it down.
So when you say manifest, that's saying you didn't want to, obviously manifesting is creating, you didn't want to believe the possibility of that. You
Yeah.
choose to try and force another way in a sense.
Yep. Yeah. I chose to refuse that becoming my reality kind of thing, if that
And
makes sense.
that didn't work for me. Like you sort of turn your back, and then the subtlety of the fear becomes paramount over a period of time.
Mm,
So back to the bus story, like I spoke to my friend, very good friend of mine, and I said, well, there's something missing that I see in this. What's that? And said, well, I said, every bus driver entices you onto their bus. So every thought will entice you.
mm,
So to say you have a choice between one thought and another, in my experience, isn't realistic because there's a fear factor. And fear it can be, and it often feels this way, fear feels magnetic.
mm.
So if it's 50-50 what you're going to follow, you can make a choice. I'm going to believe this, but if you don't address and you don't unravel, you don't investigate the thought. And well, if you can't see through the fear of the thought, then a seed can be planted subtly, and then you start avoiding certain things that may trigger the thought. It's like every thought. What I was going to say was that mind will always tell you it knows the way, and I don't think it can ever really show you the way. What I mean by that is, I feel within me, and people may disagree, and everyone's got their own way, but in my experience, my mind for years and years and years told me it knew the way, knew the process, this and that, and things didn't work. And it's like I get on the bus through fear. It's like saying, feel subtly, if you don't catch this bus, I've seen bus 70, the one you want, for years, or like I've seen it, I know where it stops. I'll take you part of the way. And or the bus driver might go, well, you think you need 70, but you actually need 72. I'll take you. And then you'll find an excuse why it can't arrive. So it's like, where you're going, it's getting dark, or this doesn't work, that doesn't work. There's a blockade here, there's a blockage there. It's someone else's fault, or and things don't line up. But thoughts and the mind they don't want you to unravel themselves in a way. It's like people call this the ego. I call it the ego as well, where he doesn't want to die. He will hang on to the very end. So I don't feel that the mind can show you all the way. I don't feel there's you can use the mind to unravel the mind to some degree, but often it can subtly trick. And this is my experience. So I used to be very analytical, and you can entertain yourself for lifetimes. And what I feel now is that the heart knows the way. It's, to me, divine intuition and creativity is an expression of heart. And I feel that, the center of the universe where everything manifests from, I feel, and maybe this may seem airy-fairy to some, but I feel that heart love is the divine creator. It's where creativity comes from, is what I like to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the mind, at best, is a magnificent interpreter of heart. Because it's like underlying your thoughts, and within your heart, you can feel certain things. You get a sense of things. And then it's learning. I like to ask questions, as you know, that is hard to answer. And the questions I tend to ask is, how do you feel within yourself with regard to this? So it's always hard questions, predominantly, for sure. And often people don't have the answers, and I've stumped random couple of things with you a few times and go, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That was probably the first time we spoke, actually, remember. So,
yep.
And that hasn't really ceased, or has it? Oh, that's how you know me to be, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's what keeps conversations interesting, I think.
Yeah. So I just feel that you have to see through every bus driver, and you have to not trust the drivers, so to speak, or use your intuition as best you can. And by questioning the thought, it's about questioning the fear that resides around the thought. Because the only way thoughts can have you, really, is if you're interested in where they lead you, or you fear them.
Yeah.
Then if you stop fearing your thoughts, you can start choosing which ones you want to follow more.
Yep.
Because that's not 50-50 in my experience. It's magnetic. So it's just a matter of time before they draw you in. If you don't face them, and it sounds sounds possibly like dark. I know, but there's a way you can challenge your thoughts. You can. I really feel that I can say to you, Linda, I think you're amazing. You're this and you're that, and you may, a number of friends that say that. And go, oh yeah, that's you. And then one person that you barely know will say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like you, or people just go, oh my god, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you question anything that doesn't serve you? And this was from the last chat, where if you don't respect the person, don't respect their view. So in that way, you can challenge their thoughts. You go, well, actually, does that sit with me? How do they sit within themselves?
Mm-hmm.
So all these topics are linked completely.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of investigating the thought, rather than manifesting and enhancing and sparking the thought. So,
And also, I think if you try to sit in different modes too, if you're feeling detached and not very happy or whatever, you look at a thought, it's always going to look different to when you're sitting in your heart and in joy and in gratitude. That thought is going to look very, very different from that perspective.
100%. How often do you read a message when you're emotional and you go, "Oh, what? I can't believe they wrote that." Oh,
That's
and,
right.
and completely misinterpret it. The next day you're
Yeah.
thinking, how do I see it like that? Like this,
Yeah.
it doesn't say that. And it's like so whether you're angry or you're fearing, like you, even if you're doing something wrong and or if you're feeling a sense of guilt within, someone says, "Oh, hi, how was your day?" What do you mean? Because
Yeah.
something is triggered, and it's like what?
Yeah.
So you got incentive. So it's a good thing that's a reaction, because it's easy if you're willing
Mm.
to see where your triggers are.
Uh,
And yeah, you
Sorry.
go.
I was just thinking that many people would say, well, it depends on your state of mind, but it's really not on your state of mind. It's your state of your heart, how in touch you are with heart that affects it, not state of mind, state of heart.
Well, that's the thing, that the heart burns through the mind ultimately, and but the mind distracts from heart. And then what's the biggest distracting factor? Well, fear. If
Mm.
if you if people fear, if you get someone fearing, you can control them, because the rationality goes out the window. And unfortunately, that's the state of the world today, where
Yeah.
I feel more people triggered like lately than there's ever been. And it's not a matter of feeling, oh, see how many ways you can be triggered. And people don't consciously do this. It's not on purpose, but you've got to be resilient. You have to be able to bear all things. If as you know, not everyone's going to like what we do or like what I do. And people will judge me probably more than you, just how I am or who I am. And they don't care what I say, whether it makes sense or not. I go, if you do the opposite to what I say, and you fall into your thoughts or your ideas on how I am or you are or anyone, it's like, well, yeah, don't question your thoughts, fall into misery, fall into suffering. Where is the hope there? So it's like you have to be prepared to let go of whatever you're thinking and feeling to grasp something new. And as I've mentioned briefly touched on, the thoughts and feelings are linked. So,
Mm.
and creating new pathways within the mind, in my experience, when you're trying to, let's say everyone's got certain patterns or conditioned ways, whether it's addictions or whatever it is. I feel when you're creating a new neural pathway, let's say you stop doing what you've been doing, whether it serves you or not, or you're seeking something better because you feel like your pattern, your habits are bogging you down, then to create a new pattern, and they say it takes 21 days, well, potentially, maybe it does.
Mm.
Um, I think you can create a pattern pretty quick anyway. I feel probably at least that long, and that might maybe bang on, but I feel like you don't while the pathway is under construction, it's not being utilised, and so you're trying to transition, you're trying to stop your pattern, you're trying to create a new road.
Mm.
So it's a period, I feel, where you don't feel so much, because trying to, it's like not until the pathway, the new neural pathway or the road's open, can you actually fully appreciate the drive, so to
Mm.
speak. But I think that's the hard thing. That's the test in any transition, is sticking with it until you start feeling in a different way. Because often, whether it's pain or fear or whatever goes on, where, people just had some tough time, they might associate pain with love or something, and then try and break that habit. You can be ingrained in them. And I just like to think there's a potential for hope. And like you're not going to jump from one thing to the next and feel straight away.
Is it a case of just changing gears and like that, and have a sense of awareness of your thoughts? It's almost like changing out of autopilot, which you've been in obviously for a period of time to get to this place, and just becoming aware of your thoughts. And then when you feel, as soon as you recognize it, I mean, even if you've been thinking about it for 5-10 minutes, it doesn't matter if it's later, but at some point when you become aware of it, then try to change it.
I think the first process is question it.
Mm.
If it serves you, and it makes you feel good, don't question it, embrace it, love it.
Mm.
But if it's something that creates negative feelings, don't believe that it's real because there's an emotional response. Just use that as a sign that you want something else and start questioning. We've spoken about writing your thoughts down when you're not in a good place, and then, as you mentioned, become aware of it so you can change it. And writing it, and when you're in a particular place, and then you're feeling neutral later or a bit better within yourself, your whole perception of that thought will change. But that's where, if you write it down, you can hold that voice in your head accountable.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want. We want to. Isn't it amazing that so many listeners, many people feel that they're not worthy, at least at some points in their life? I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I've told a few friends this. I've mentioned this to you before, that voice in your head that says you're not worthy, like at the time, and let's say you did something that you didn't like, where you didn't sit with you in the past, or you feel like reflecting, you made a bad decision. When you go back into that place when you weren't feeling good, or you were lashing out, or you're angry, you're upset or hurting, or it's like you were lost and you weren't in touch with your heart. But in those times, what was your guiding light? Well, guiding light's probably the wrong word. What was your guide? What was your guide in those moments? This is profound. It's that voice in your head. That voice in your head, well, out there, people out there, the voice in your head that's guiding you and that tells you you're not good enough is the very same voice. And we might say it's the ego. It's not serving you, but it's the very same voice that told you what path to take back then. So you weren't feeling good or you made the wrong decision. So, and then it's judging you now, saying, "Oh, you did this, you did that. You're not good enough. You shouldn't have done this, or you hurt someone, or you should have regrets, or you feel guilt, or which is innate in everyone." It's having a go at you and judging you for following it, and then that very voice says, "Well, you shouldn't have done this, and you're bad. It's your fault." When you're lost and you allowed it to guide you, and then the voice tells you, "Well, you should listen to me now. That I know the answers." It's like, well, isn't it the very same voice that fooled me before? This is profound, and it's like, well, what are you showing me that's different now? And then the voice will almost rationalize, say, well, but it wasn't my fault. The best we could do it was someone else's fault. Someone made you think this. Someone made you. So it's deflection. It's crazy when you break it down.
Yep.
It's an insane world, and the inner world is crazy. You break it down, it's like it will. And that's why just stay on point. Just keep watching the thoughts. Keep writing them down. See through as many as you can. And you'll see how it deflects. Like I've done Vipassana retreats and done different things where you're in silence for 10 days and that sort of thing. And every time I came out, I was a different person. I'd seen some things. And you start becoming aware. You start becoming aware of the patterns and how your mind distracts you, and how it buries you in suffering. And awareness, whatever practice you do for awareness, in my experience, will help you unravel yourself. You don't have to. You can meditate, you can do yoga. There's many ways. See a psych, see a good psych, and they'll ask questions. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist, but it's all about unraveling the mind. Instead of blindly believing anything. So the other question is, who is responsible for your thoughts, your thinking? I used to think when I was young and suffering and going through struggles in the 90s. I remember thinking, I'd like to run away. I imagined, because I wasn't going to do it. Well, I did consider this. I want to run away, have no responsibility, just have nothing, not have nothing, but run away and everything, all the challenges of life, and then I'll be free. And I thought that was freedom back then, and people might think I just have no responsibilities. But the only way you can, or anyone can empower themselves, the only way you can empower yourself is to take 100% responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, and action. And this will be a theme through everything that we talk about the whole time with Fireside Chats. That's the answer, because if I blame you for how I'm feeling, or you have to change your way for me to be happy, then that's a very fragile world that I'm living in. I cannot change my thoughts, my feelings, my way if I'm blaming you for anything. So accountability, and this is the trouble people being triggered today is everyone passes the buck, passes the blame, and then the whole world has to change. Everyone in the world has to change for me to be happy. That's an extremely vulnerable place to be in.
Yeah. But it's your choice. If a thought's only a thought, it's only you who can empower that thought. If you ignore that thought and let it keep drifting, then it's gone. So no one else can do that for you. Only you can do that.
Well, this brings me to the another point, which I feel very valid, that what does it take to suffer? And the thing with this, I spoke to you about this before, Linda, as you know, that to suffer, we must remind ourselves that we're suffering. From the incense. So if we don't, and we all know someone that's suffering, and so much effort and energy has to go into suffering constantly. And it's amazing how many people that are suffering are justifying the suffering day in, day out, and they're living the past or they're fearing the future.
Yep.
Why would you justify your suffering? And like, it's okay to, like, understanding your suffering is one thing, justifying it's another. It's different if some, physically, if you're abused or you're hurt physically, like there's a cause and effect with that anyway, like it's, but internally, like, why choose, if you're not feeling good within, why choose to keep embedding and enhancing those thoughts that create suffering? And to do that, to be stuck in that place, you have to blame someone else. Because as soon as you take responsibility for your thoughts and feelings and actions, then you're taking control of the reign.
Mm.
And even if that's scary, there's a sense that I can do this. I can work, if I'm blaming another, then there's nothing I can do. That's living in hell. That's a tough place to live.
Yep.
There's no solution for that, apart from anyone that triggers you needs to change.
Mm.
And as you know, when growing up, your understanding enhances or changes like we like to think it does.
Mm.
So at what point do I need to maintain that particular or any particular awareness to suit another person? And as they grow, then do I need to keep changing to suit their growth? Then I'm constantly adapting myself for someone else. The whole connotation is actually insane. I don't like saying insanity, but like saying insane, but it is. It makes no sense when you break it down.
That's
We
right.
cannot. We have to take accountability. We have to challenge things. It's the only way. We have to challenge our own thinking, thoughts. Before we challenge another person, challenge ourselves. Like, it's just, if you protect and harbor negative thoughts, you are protecting and harboring negative thoughts and reinforcing any negativity means you're protecting. Don't you? And it's a negative on a negative, but wouldn't you want to destroy negativity?
That's right.
It's more accurate to say, wouldn't you want to transcend negativity?
Find happiness. Let go of the misery and find happiness.
Thanks for listening to Fireside Chat. Our Thoughts Real Part 1. Stay tuned for Part 2.